Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Samp Chance Boxing. I am your host, Bobby Sampson, joined as always, my man with the master plan, Mr. Chance Michaels. And guys, you're probably wondering who's sitting there down below us. Ladies and gentlemen, we bring to you one of the up-and-coming promoters in the boxing world, founder of the Boxing Insider webpage, established in 1997. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Larry Goldberg. Larry, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's fight week. It's Atlantic City. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. We're just dealing with all the craziness that comes with fight week.
No, absolutely. And we're going to get into fight week. But before we do that, I love to ask you a question that I like to start most shows off with, maybe whatever we're talking about. Did boxing find Larry or did Larry find boxing?
Larry, I grew up in Atlantic City uh, during the boxing heyday,
Right.
and so we would just go hang out in the casinos and go to boxing fights on normal kids. If I would have lived in Philadelphia, I would have been going to Eagles games or Phillies games. But we were here. We went to all these ballroom boxing shows. Me and my friends would sneak in or get tickets, and they give us the stacks of comp coupons, and we'd eat hot dogs, and we'd hang out with the fighters, and that kind of stuff. Back when there was just a lot of boxing and on the weekends, and so that was sort of how I found boxing. Like I said, I've always been into boxing and wrestling. I mean, I went to WrestleMania 4 here, but again, growing up in Atlantic City, I started boxinginsider.com kind of as a way to get into the fights, and it was an interesting way to meet people in boxing and start a little trouble. And then in 2022, I kind of became a promoter.
There you go. And I wanted to talk about that. So Heather Hardy is an influential part of you becoming a promoter. She was your personal trainer, correct?
Yes.
How did that happen? How did she convince you to go from Boxing Insider, the web page to taking pictures and stuff like that? How did that all happen?
Well, I mean, we were in Gleason's gym. I mean, Gleason's gym is just boxing. She was a tremendous influence on me and on everyone around me. And it was after the pandemic. They wanted to fight. Her promoter wasn't promoting. And I had just done an amateur show, and I was like, let's give it a shot.
That's awesome. That's awesome. As of one point, I'm not sure if that stat is there anymore, but you were running more shows than Matchroom, Top Rank, and everyone else in
Well,
the
let's
region.
put that in. I appreciate that. You have done your research. I appreciate that statistic, but let's put this in context.
Sure.
You guys do wrestling, so you guys are familiar, obviously, with indie wrestling,
Yeah,
GCW,
Yeah.
XPW, those kind of,
yeah,
and I'm not talking about the product, I'm talking about the law of scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're doing events like that. We were not, so Eddie Hearn comes in and does the Garden, and we did a show, but obviously it's a different level. But the answer was in 2023, after the pandemic, there wasn't a lot of boxing any period.
Right.
And I had done the first fight anyway, and Sony Hall was happy with us. They would have a lot pre-pandemic. They would have recurring shows with different groups would bring in musical acts or whatever, but they had holes in their schedule, especially midweek. So we were a great Thursday night show that was good for the bar, and so we turned over 6 shows, which was a record at that point.
Mhm.
They said Top Rank and the other promoters did 1 and 2 each. And I was sort of credited for bringing boxing back after the pandemic. Now, obviously, we were doing much smaller, entry level boxing fights. So it's not really fair to say, oh, we did more fights than Top Rank because I mean, Top Rank is at the top of the mountain. We were just, like I said, basically just doing indie boxing, bringing on a lot of the local kids from the amateurs, and that fought at many of the local gyms.
Okay, cool. I appreciate where you're coming from, Larry, but you can't take away for me anyways, that's an amazing accolade. Any way you want to paint it, it's
Well,
just an
thank you very
amazing thing,
much.
right?
La-
Absolutely.
Larry, what was the day or the moment that you decided I want to start my own promotion and bring boxing back into Atlantic City?
Well, those are a couple different questions. The boxing back into Atlantic City, I grew up in Atlantic City. So, I mean, I went to Atlantic City High School. I've gotten in trouble in Atlantic City. I've things of, like, I mean, this is where, again, I live, my parents, I grew up about, I'm at my mom's house right now. I mean, I grew up 12 minutes away from where I am right now from Atlantic City. So when we had, I had just by luck fell into doing boxing in New York, and we had done 9 shows in a row, back to back at Sony Hall, including the 6 I was telling you about.
Yeah.
So it was sort of, I had gotten my promoter's license in New Jersey, knowing I wanted to do something. And there was an incident, and the incident was kind of funny. Had nothing to do with boxing. At one of the Sony Hall events, there were NYPD officers that wanted to, come, whatever, but they weren't wearing their whatever. So there was a fight between Sony Hall security and the NYPD detail over them bringing it. And I'm sitting there like, and they call me up, oh, promoter. I'm like, yeah, what am I supposed to do? You've
Right.
got these guys. The security guards are like bigger than, like Brock Lesnar big, and then you've got it's NYPD, and I'm like, so I'm like, I need a little bit of a break in New York, and that was on one hand, and Tropicana sort of just gave us a shot because they were doing mixed martial arts, and it was the same setup. So, and I used to work at Tropicana, so it was like, let's just do it. And then I got hooked up with Justin Figueroa, and and since I'm from here, I have a lot of media connections and people that we knew that they wanted not only boxing to come back to Atlantic City, but they wanted it to be done by someone that was from here. So it was more of a community event, not just, hi, we're going to come in town, we're going to lie to everybody, we're going to try to grab some money off the undercard guys, and we're going to skip town again for 6 months. Because that's what most of these promoters do. Or it's, every, couple of years, Eddie Hearn comes in with the Boots fight, and then he stands in the middle of the ring and tells everyone, well, the only reason I'm in Atlantic City is because I couldn't book Philadelphia that night. And I'm saying, not only do I want to be in Atlantic City, I grew up in Atlantic City. I just pull this and sitting at my feet. We're doing the Atlantic City Police Athletic League
Awesome.
amateur show on Sunday. So we rent the room. We do the show on Friday. It's dark on Saturday, but there's a custom ring at Tropicana where they built it up like 10 years ago where it's right on the stage. So they
Yeah.
leave it as is. And then on Sunday, we're going to have the amateur fight. And again, the truth that, and it's definitely not making us money, but it's one of those things that if you're from the community, you see the value. If you're not from the community, why would you do it? And so it was very important for me to bring, not just the boxing back here, but to bring the community affairs thing happen. So, life works in funny ways, and it just sort of happened.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What's it like working with Lou DiBella?
Are we on the air?
We are on the air. Well, I only bring it up because he's like, just based on the things that I've read and stuff, I noticed that you're doing a lot of stuff with Lou. Is that
We worked with Lou, so he was the promoter. He's the promoter for a lot of the New York fighters.
Sure.
He is sort of retired. They have sort of passed the baton of Broadway boxing to us. Our last New York show was aired as Broadway boxing.
Right.
The reruns air on SNY, which is where the
Mets?
play. And he's been fun, but he can be he could be great, or he could be mean. I mean, if you follow him on Twitter, I mean, you don't, when he calls you, like he called me this morning, it was a good call. It was about something non-boxing related. But sometimes, he calls you up, and, he's a lawyer. He uses foul language sometimes. And, but seriously, he's been great to work with. A lot of the old timers have been great to work with.
That's amazing. That's
Cool.
amazing.
So tell us about the card coming up this Friday. Looks like a great card. I'll let you let our fans know about it.
Well, again, so it's the idea was to do something a little different here. And what we do in Atlantic City wouldn't work in other markets. And it's a combination of, we're trying to build up the local scene, but we're also trying to, if I just put on really good prospects, nobody would come. So what we have now is a really good hybrid. So we've got Justin Figueroa, who just came off winning the NABF title over the summertime. This will be his 5th appearance on a Boxing Insider show. He's headlining against Jose Perdomo. Just upset a 12-0 fighter on Mickey Bay on Joe DeGuardia's show in New York a couple months ago. So, I mean, he's not fighting a pushover guy.
Yeah.
We have Otto Wallen, who just fought he fought Chisora, he fought Anthony Joshua, he fought Tyson Fury. He's one of the top 20 heavyweights in the world. This is his step back fight, and we're very excited to have him. We have Bruce Seldon Jr., who makes his fifth appearance also at the Tropicana. He's fighting. I don't have the card sitting in front of me, so I don't remember everyone's name. The We have Josh Popper, who's from Summers Point, who is in New York. He does Breadwinners Boxing in New York. He's making his hometown debut. Him and Justin went to the same high school together, so it's a fun little local event thing that we're doing. We have Leah Lewandowski, who is a very, it's a very a nice up and coming boxer from New York. This will be her third fight. I mean, New Jersey. Then we have blue chip prospects. We have the Lugo brothers, who are with OTX. They are with Frank Warren. They are just getting their feet wet. They have one of them has I don't want to screw up the thing, but over 100 amateur national wins. We have four of the fighters on the card, Yoel Angeloni and Ryan O'Connor and the Lugo brothers are serious contenders and prospects to look out for in the next couple of years. And so, like I said, we have a really good mix of local fighters and international fighters and up and coming fighters. And the fight will air on DAZN.
I'm excited for it. Like you said, you've got some prospects, you got some veterans that people know, Otto Wallin. So it's going to be a great card. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I know. It looks like an amazing card. Now, when it comes to the Lugo brothers, I asked Chances when I looked at the poster. At first glance, are they twins?
No,
they're not twins. Okay. But both are, they're young prospects. They're looking good.
They are looking, they are looking to give them the rocket ship, as they say, next year. So this is just, but this is they're both getting their feet wet. I think this is the one Lugo brothers first 8-round. I have to say which ones. I don't have the list in front of me.
Right.
But one of them's it's the first 6 and the first 8 for both of them. So they're both stepping it up. And like I said, they're the kind of fighters that it's fun to, when I was growing up going to the fights, my favorite part was seeing a fighter live, and then 2 years later, there he was on the big stage.
Yes.
But they're not, but no one, if they're coming for Atlantic City right now, they're buying a ticket for the local fighters. And that was sort of, the hybrid that it took a few shows to kind of figure out exactly how to bake that cake.
Cool. How did Otto Wallin come about? Because considering his name, considering who he's fought and all these kind of things, how were you able to?
So
in my opinion, I think out of all the guys,
this will not be the answer you expected.
No,
pre-pandemic, I used to be a member of Mendez Boxing Gym in New York, and Otto used to train there. I was just a media guy. The fighters would not talk to a media guy, and I'm talking about some of my best friends now, like Jose Guzman and Henry De Leon and some of the, I was just boxing inside of the media guy. So they were not going to just, let me hang out with them. So it was like, all right, kid, whatever. And they loved it. They would put me into the ring and I would have gloves on and I used to spar, and there's videos of me getting as good as I can take. And so there is a video that will never be played, but I could show it, of me wearing the chest protector and Otto hitting me as hard as he can in the chest. And I'm sitting there like this, and he's hitting me, and I'm kind of like, now, so the truth was, Otto used to come watch fights at my house sometimes. Otto used to, he was in our friend group at Mendez Boxing, and, that was sort of how, Otto came on. So he feels very safe in our environment. Like I said, me and him knew each other. Like I knew, like I said, I knew our other star fighter who's not on this card, Andy Dominguez. Like we were just friends at Mendez. And the greatest moment I've had as a boxing promoter was on July 25th, standing next to him and holding his hands up after he had a war to win his first WBC belt. Like that made all the BS, the almost losing fights, having a fight canceled, made it all worth it.
That's amazing. Larry, we live in a world where prices are overinflated. We live in a world where everybody wants to screw and scrouge and take every penny they possibly can. your ticket prices here are so reasonable. $53 to start. Explain that. How are you doing this? Like you're making it affordable so people can make it out.
Bobby, I just want to give you a hug. Um, look, I mean, in New York, you would not be saying that.
Yeah.
If you went to our Sony Hall show, it's a 500 seat venue. It's in the middle of Times Square. Our
Right.
first ticket starts without fees, $100.
Still, for
In
Times
Atlantic
Square?
City, we have a 3,000 seat venue.
Yeah.
This economy is not what it used to be. People don't have discretionary money. So I'd rather sell 5 extra tickets than jack your price up for an extra $10.
Yeah.
So we wanted to bring in the locals. We wanted it to be that kind of show. And so and again, the venue is huge. Now, if we had, Manny Pacquiao on the card, the tickets would be a lot more
Sure.
expensive. But
Yeah.
we work with the law of scales, and I wasn't when I growing up here. I used to go to all the indie shows, and they would all at least 20 MMA promoters after the UFC launch came to Atlantic City to launch, and I used to watch these guys come to town. They talk a big game. They do this. They do that. Everyone did something a little bit better than everyone else, and then they
Mhm.
sucked at everything else. And they would all be the biggest guy on Saturday, and you never heard from him again. And
Right.
so, in my mind, I couldn't do that. I grew up here. If this doesn't work out, I'm going to go do something else in this market. So it was very important that if people were going to go around town saying, "Oh, it was family friendly,"
Mhm.
and that it was, it was we weren't trying to gouge you.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
look, I mean, there are $200 seats up front, which are for boxing is very cheap. But
Oh,
like
yeah.
I said, the average price tickets between, we have $50 seats, so they're very good. And the best seats in Atlantic City are the bleachers at the Tropicana. It shoots very beautiful for TV, and those are $80.
Larry, what are some of the hardest parts about being a promoter, would you say?
You're not as rich as anyone thinks you are. Everybody has an angle. Your best friend today will stab you in the back tomorrow and then get mad at you that they don't want to be your best friend the next day. And then you get these stupid, well, it's boxing. And I've always found that offensive because I've dealt with people like at the bigger companies. I don't want to start name checking people,
Mhm.
but who, again, if they told you it was going to be, the color red at 3 o'clock, it was going to be the color red at 3 o'clock. You have other people they lie, they can't help themselves for lying. So
Yeah.
for me, the hardest part was always, I grew up that hey, my handshake meant something. Here, people's handshakes don't mean anything. They'll
Yeah.
screw you and then they'll try to be your friend the next day. And then, oh, well, this is boxing. And they're not even screwing you for a real reason. They'll screw you over for, 2 weeks here and $50 here. Like it's weird stuff. And, the hardest part is, like I said, dodging a lot of the egos. One thing that I'm not proud of is, every single one of these events, there's always some kind of argument with some situation that it's like, really? Like you didn't have this on your bingo card.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the hardest part is dealing with the egos. And again, I was a media guy like you. I was hosting a podcast pre-pandemic. That was my thing. So at some weird port, all of a sudden I stopped being Larry, the media guy, to, evil scumbag, lying, two-fit, whatever promoter, whatever words they want to call a promoter, even though
Yeah.
people don't say that about me, but because you're a promoter, they just assume the worst in you.
That's
And,
true.
and the truth is, I've been around long enough now to understand, now, that's not my situation. People have a reason to be guarded in this
Yeah.
business.
For sure.
Well, I mean, you come from a long line of promoters, and your predecessors did some shady stuff, which kind of falls down the realm of how people are
We had a
seen, right?
problem at our last show. I don't want to get into on the air, but it was about it was whatever, and it was the Randy Gordon, who was our commentator, used to be the commissioner of New York, walked up to me, shook his head, and says, "Everybody likes you, but understand you're paying for the sins of others." That
Yeah.
was his way of saying a couple of these other promoters and people have done horrible things that they know that they did, that they can't 100% pin down, so therefore they got to look at you or you or you, and it's like, what did I do? It's like
Yeah.
I was like, I always joke that I'm like the Mr. Smith goes to Washington, role. Our mutual friend Jasmine St. Clair
Yeah.
she gets all mad at me that she got mad at me that I even got into boxing, because I knew her from, the XPW world. And when we got in, she was just like, look, you're a good person. You're going to be dealing with, shady people. And, every once in a while, she just hits me up and gets like, you're, I get a lot of I told you so's because, again, the problem is, we came from I came from like you guys, the media world, and
Yeah.
everyone in the media world, as crazy as we all are with our pet peeves or pet issues, we all have do-gooder mentalities. We all have that kind of agenda. We love the business for,
Yeah.
and it was just like I had been to enough of these indie shows saying, you know what, why not? You know what I mean? Like, these guys aren't smarter than me. But the truth is, the guy who was probably smarter than me was the guy who didn't do it, who's just, watching it because, I look back on the last 3 years. We've done this will be my 19th professional fight card.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I
Thank
should
you.
have. I mean, should I have done this, or should I have opened up a baseball card store? But now Tom Brady's opening up a baseball card store. If you're gonna you own a mom and pop baseball card store, and Tom Brady opens up a baseball card shop, you can't compete with him.
No.
And I use that as my example because TKO. And as we can complain what we think of the UFC or the WWE, and they haven't done anything in boxing yet, but because of their money and their reach, you the business of boxing is about to drastically change.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had a quick
absolutely.
question for you. I know this is the boxing show, but do you still pay attention to wrestling? Are you still a big fan?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Not. I show my age. I think, I'm still one of those nerds that thinks it all peaked at the Attitude Era. Like, but I mean, every once in a while. But the thing is, I'm not. I'm the worst kind of fan for them. I don't really watch. I just. Oh, this clip pops up on YouTube or Twitter. I watch that stuff. I don't. I couldn't sit through 15 minutes of a Monday Night Raw unless you told me to tune in right when Brock Lesnar was on or something like that.
Sure.
Totally agree with you on that. 100%.
Larry, you said I've read this a few times now in just again looking back at you and trying to figure out everything about you, and the one thing I
It
noticed
scares me when you say that.
well, hey, when I want to get to know somebody, I will do the best I possibly can. You said one thing, and there was never any follow up to that statement. I like being the small guy in the small promoter.
I love it.
Okay, so expand on that. What does that mean? What are the
There were the
benefits?
regional shows. Look, if you're a boxer, and they always, you got to sign with this. Like, forget that. Like, I'm not saying that any of these. I mean, I am, but some of these guys are bad guys in boxing. I don't even want to talk about that. But being the small promoter meant I want to be able to say, hey, this is my friend Nadim Saloom, who's the first ever boxer from Lebanon, who I also knew from Mendez, who's fought on 3 of my cards. He's coming back to the country. He's fighting. I want him on my card. I don't want him on my card like other promoters do, and then they're just going to try to sign him off, and then they want, look. And I always say the same thing with the fighters. Look, I hope you make $1 million. Like I do. And one thing I learned, look, did I not think when I first started this that I'm going to go promote a fight, I'm going to sign Floyd Mayweather, I'm going to make $1 million bucks? But we all think like that.
Yeah.
It was explained to me by a lawyer very early on that that's never going to happen. Because even if you get Floyd Mayweather, you're not going to sign him because of the money. But even if you did sign him to a 5-year contract, you don't think that Al Heyman's going to find a comma out of this? And I will spend $2 million trying to collect my $500,000.
Yeah.
So therefore, so when I took that off the table and I said, look, I want to deal with people I like, deal with people who, can, we can have fun with. I can build their careers. They can, they can help me build a brand. And so, yeah, the answer is I love being the little guy where, look, there's a fighter who was just on our New York card, Kurt Scooby. He just got a fight. He's fighting a big fight out in the UK next week.
Right.
His big push-off fight was on Boxing Insider, and I don't have my notes in front of me, so I don't want to say the wrong names. Right. But it was on the Big Ben Shalom card they just announced a couple days ago. We had Christina Cruz came on a couple years ago. She fought 2 fights, bing, and then gets a title fight immediately after. Like she wasn't ranked. right. Like, so it was a lot of fun that if the right situation can exist, and unfortunately, without getting into the economics, the right situation exists is because the fighter has the right manager who's covering some of the expenses. And look, and some of these managers are great, and some of these managers think that they're more than just writing checks, and none of them, and so it really comes about having the right situations. And I can tell you that I like working with people that I like. Now, because that's my philosophy, I've been burned. And most people in my situation is, the old school promoters would look at this and says, I've done 19 fights. Every show I have, I should have 2 or 3 fighters under contract. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not talking about Kurt Scooby. He's got 2 promoters. They're talking about Kurt Scooby's opponents. They're talking about this because the real money that people make in this business is like it's very sleazy. Is they're pimping out the other guys, and so if I was the old school promoter, I would try to lock down a bunch of those guys and sell them to other promoters. I didn't want to get into that. I was very I got into this in a very pure way to just promote the fights, but promote it in that kind of way and promote the fighters, but not I don't want to be selling guys off to lose to make $500.
Larry, who would you say in boxing right now that's a high level promoter that you respect the most or look up to? If you don't mind me asking you that, not to put you on the spot, but
I mean, there's only the to me the most powerful promoter in boxing right now and for the next 5 years is a gentleman that you were not expecting me to name, Nick Khan.
Yeah,
Nick Khan is the guy. Nick Khan represented everybody under TV contracts. Everyone talks about the Zuffa and this. Nick Khan. And I mean, with my own 2 eyes, I was on the other side when Tom Loeffler did his first show at the Garden. Nick was sitting next to Triple H and Dana White. Now, Dana is the guy that everyone's going to talk about, and he's great and whatever.
Yeah.
But when you see about how he's run WWE as a company, believe me, this is just going to be 12 to 16 more WWE dates. And so the answer is it's him. But if you take that world out of the equation, like I said, I have a lot of love for Lou. I've it was fun to watch some of the older promoters, like Russell Peltz and Joe DeGuardia and some of the others operate in this business. But as far as who I think does the best job, I mean, prior to him, I mean, I would have to say another promoter no one ever talks about because he wasn't a promoter was Al Heyman. But and then if you want to go back before that, it was Don King. But Don King was robbing everybody to pay off, the mafia. So, that was all, by the way, that was all in Jack Newfield's book. I'm not saying anything that I'm not allowed to say. And that was,
Did you ever get to meet Don King?
Yeah, yes, I have.
What was he like? The person larger than life? Like we see on TV?
I met him as a media guy and not as a promoter, but as a media guy. And so he would know he had side deals with every boxing promoter. Now, I'm a kid. I had just launched Boxing Insider and I'm sitting front row at one of these press conferences and I got these big wide eyes. I'm looking at Don King like if, we were like that close at like, age 18 with like Vince McMahon for the first time at a press conference.
Yeah.
And so he gets off stage and he knows everybody. And he just starts glaring at me. Who is the one person in the front row with his little notebook? Like, who is this person? So the answer is he kind of scared me a little bit. And then as I would go to fights, it was, he should have been an entertainer because there was this one fight they did at the Garden that with him and Aram, and they were like Heckle and Jekyll up there on the thing, and they were busting each other's balls like 2 old guys that really hate each other, but actually at this point of their lives they tolerate each other, and it was just so entertaining. But I don't think anybody in boxing has done it right where you can look up to them.
Well said,
including myself. I've learned the business, and. I mean, we're just gonna, and I love fighting the fights, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just a single guy, running this on, adrenaline at this point.
Absolutely.
I love your energy, by the way. I was going to just want to say, man, I love your energy and the passion in the interview. So I can only imagine the passion you bring into your show behind the scenes that we don't see.
Absolutely. And that segues right into what I wanted to ask you, Larry. What is fight week like for you? How much do you sleep? How, like, from Monday to the end?
So there's
How hard
about
is it?
50 rooms of people staying at the casino on from Wednesday to Friday night.
Sure.
Some of them go through me, and some of them go through their management companies. So they didn't get us the code until last night. How do at 9 o'clock? I had to explain to people, um, the casino is sold out on Friday night. They might have to put you at another casino, which would have been a logistical nightmare.
Right.
Because what they do is they stay at the casino. They get vouchers to eat in the employee cafeteria. If we'd have to bring them in, and so that really would have been a disaster. Like it really would have. At 7:15 in the morning, I get the message from the lady who runs runs it. She goes, "We moved some rooms around. You're good." And everybody got the rooms. I mean,
Awesome.
but again, last night we had no rooms. Um, the last event, which I was talking about, my proud moment with Andy Dominguez, they needed to get him. He had to his opponent had to get a last minute medical test, and we did not get an answer that we were even going to have a main event until 7:15. People were coming in the venue, and there was again, I knew it was fine, but until they tell you it's not fine. So it's kind of going through everyone's head. I might have to say, "Hey, thanks for coming. By the way, refunds will be at the front desk. You're never going to see me again. The main event is canceled. Have a safe drive home."
That would have been a nightmare.
That would have been a nightmare. So the
That
answer
would
is
definitely would be.
everything that can go wrong does go wrong. We've lost fights. We've had, I mean, there's been articles written about, we had one event where we lost, half the fights the week of the fight. There was snow, there was this, then we had when Andy was supposed to fight a guy for a 108-pound title. And a week before the fight, we find out the guy weighs 121 pounds and won't come down. But Andy can't fight for the title at 108.1. So that means the lightest his opponent could come in to be 111. And at the last minute, we had to cancel the entire event. It just came crashing down like a house of cards. And, that was a very, that was a very hard one for me to swallow. Because again, I put so much of myself into this. When something goes wrong, whether it's a fighter who I've tried to help out that doesn't like me over something that is a misunderstanding, or in this case, literally an entire card built around Andy Dominguez that was on the zone that they had promoted during Turkey's Times Square fight, which literally we're all just watching the fight on TV, and then the zone goes, "Hey, also next week from New York City, Andy Dominguez fights this at." I'm like, everyone's like, "How much did you pay for that?" I'm like, "I didn't even know they were going to do that." So some of it's cool, but the answer is you don't know what's going to happen. Fighters are going to miss weight. Fighters are going to want this. People are going to, we had one fight where the trainer got drunk at the fight, and we had last minute, the only way the other fight could go off is one of the other licensed trainers had to work this guy's corner, and we had to throw this guy out. I mean,
Oh wow.
we've had some interesting situations, doing these. And because like I said, the boxing people it's a little different than the wrestling people. It's,
Yeah.
you've got some rough characters in there.
Oh
That's
yeah.
amazing and crazy, crazy. The things people don't see, right? We only see
The
what they
things
let
people
us
don't,
see.
yeah, like I said, if we were here to talk about the beauty of the sweet science, and when you should bob or weave, you should talk to like some of my friends like Jose Guzman or Henry DeLeon
Mhm.
or Andy Dominguez or someone like that. They will tell you the nuances. I can just tell you the business, and it's almost like an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I
Sure.
just stand there like you can't make this stuff up.
Oh
No,
no.
no, absolutely no. Um, so you're on the zone.
You're on the zone again, yes.
Last check, I heard that you're doing a show by show. Is that still the case, or have you
You
signed
really
something
did do
with them?
your research on me. Um, remind me not to piss you guys off. Wow. Um, yes, yes. Look, Oscar De La Hoya, Bare Knuckle, these big companies have big deals with the zone.
Sure.
They do. At some point, the zone started taking smaller shows.
Right.
So They did not. Now again, some of it had to do with timing, but our last show wasn't on DAZN. This show is on DAZN. I think it's pretty much on a case by case basis. The people at DAZN are great, but I mean, we're not their number one or two priority. So I'm happy to be on the platform, and like I said, they've been great and they've helped us build the brand over the last couple of years. But we've done. I'd say 6 or 7 shows on DAZN. I have to go back and look it up, but they've been you know.
We're definitely gonna do our best to put the links up, promote it, let everybody know where to go watch, and we're definitely gonna be watching it ourselves. It's gonna be should be a fun night.
Yes,
No, like I said,
absolutely.
it'll be a fun, interesting local event. Like I said, we've got a mix of local and international fighters, and like I said, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm Eddie Hearn or Oscar De La Hoya, but this is we are an indie. We are it's just me with a good group of friends that have been working with me since the first show, the second show, people I've known before that. We have a tremendous matchmaker, Eric Botcher, who's been doing this for 31 years. And it's just been, it's been a thrill to get to do it. It was one of those things that I never thought I'd get to do.
Yeah.
And now that I've done it, I kind of don't know how to get out of it.
Well, you're doing it the right way.
As soon as, I don't know, I mean, it's like, oh, everyone's already, when's your next show here? When's your next show here? And I'm like, can I take a month off? The answer is, I have 2 dates in mind for New Jersey and 3 dates in mind for New York in 2026. I haven't booked them yet. And, I learned the hard way that it's better to book a fight and then book the date than book a date and then try to fight in the fight.
Yeah.
Right. It might be easier that way.
Well, I learned that unfortunately the hard way.
You know what? And sometimes the best lessons of life are the ones that we learn the hard way, right? I mean, it's trial and error, and that just makes us better as we progress in our journeys. Larry, we're at that stage of the show where Mr. Michaels loves to play a game called or what do we call it?
We're going to call the name game. I'm going to throw it in
the
name
game
of a promoter, a boxer. Just give me a few words on what you think about him.
Okay.
Okay. Bob Arum.
Legend.
Eddie Hearn.
Great promoter.
Frank Warren.
The top promoter in the UK.
Don King, we talked about earlier.
One of a kind.
And to segue in, because kind of how the show came about, this is a wrestling one. Vince Russo.
I have more than one word for him. And the answer is Crash TV, the greatest wrestling writer ever.
Thank you for saying that, Larry. I say that all the time on my show. The other guys that I podcast
He's
with,
unappreciated. He's unappreciated for reasons that were out of his control. And no, I'm a fan.
Me too. He's my favorite writer too. The ratings say it, right? So.
Well, I was expecting you to say McMahon, but
I love McMahon too. I love Vinny too.
But no, Vince Russo is
So Larry, if I may, very quickly before we cap this up, because I know you got a lot of stuff to do, and again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your fight week schedule to sit down with us here on the West Coast. You're literally on the Atlantic, we're literally on the Pacific, which is amazing. The TKO and the Ali Act, your thoughts on it, if you have an opinion.
Do a whole show on that.
Well, it's a show. Just give me the crib notes.
My short opinion is everybody that's commenting on it in boxing is fronting, and that these guys have taken over and they don't even realize it yet. They don't need the TKO Act, and this is not Muhammad. This is the TKO Act. They don't need that to be the number 1 and 2 promoter in boxing because Endeavor owns controls all this media. That's why I said Nick Khan. With this, I mean, do I care that we're not doing a belt? Who cares? I agree with Mauricio. I think that the WBC belt, and there'll be a certain part of boxing that will stick around with it. So the only part I can really comment on are the medicals. And I'm going to give an answer that is different than most because I have done boxing in New York and New Jersey, which are the 2 strictest states in the country, and like I said, and Nevada and California are on the list. But there's about 35 to 40 states in this country that have athletic commissions that are just absolute garbage. Fighters don't need to take MRIs. Fighters don't need to take, they don't have the same medical testing requirements or whatever. The New York State Athletic Commission's requirements are 90 to 95% in that act. Some of the things like the insurance, I pay more for insurance in New York than they call for in the act. Are they calling for that different liability insurance? Yeah, but the people who talk about the insurance don't really understand what that means. So the answer is it fair that they're going to play by a different set of rules? I mean, they got better. They got better lawyers than I do.
Yeah.
Is the landscape going to change? 100%.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, I'll just say this about the Muhammad Ali Act. I've always felt that it was unfair that MMA and boxing don't have the same rules. I don't know what those rules are, but I do find it weird that all these MMA people came out to California State Athletic Commission meeting for the Muhammad Ali Act. These are people in the MMA business, mind you, that want to be in the boxing business. There was no boxing people other that weren't associated with them on that call. Yeah. And for them to not come out with so for I guess what I'm just trying to say is the same rules should apply for MMA and boxing.
Sure.
And that's really what it comes down to, is that, and I don't know what those rules are, but it shouldn't be a separation of church and state here, but not here. It shouldn't be this here and this here. Other than the rules of engagement in the ring, the rules should be the same for MMA and boxing. What those rules are, look, the lawyers, nobody in boxing was crying to change the Muhammad Ali Boxing Act. Nobody was. Mm-hmm. Nobody was. This was an outside company who did this, who helped get the president of the United States elected. And so the victor goes to spoils. But even without changing the Muhammad Ali Boxing Act, they were going to be the #1 promoters in boxing.
Yeah, they're coming to take over. Yeah.
Well, I don't even know if they're coming to take over, but they are coming to, if you want to watch boxing or MMA, you're going to have to tune into the Paramount Network for 16 dates. Will boxing be on DAZN? I mean, how many people have DAZN anymore? I mean, you have to be part of the niche. I mean, when I say that, I'm not being insulting, but, I originally liked showing them on YouTube. But you know what the problem with showing these fights on YouTube is? The first time one of these guys plays a song in the background by any act you've ever heard of, boom, you get flagged. Boom, ads start popping up on your page. And, you want to go watch this Andy Dominguez fight that has like 60,000 views, which was the fight of the year that went on our last card. Great, you got to sit through a commercial. Oh, you must be getting rich off the commercial. I don't see that money.
Yeah.
So if you want to, but, so the answer is that I think that's, where the future is going.
Amazing.
But there's always going to be room for the indies.
Dude, I love your energy. I love your passion, the excitement that you brought to the show. It's definitely one of our best guests. I love it. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you. Thank Jasmine for asking me to come on.
Yeah,
and for putting us in touch.
Made this happen.
I really, really appreciate it. It's an amazing, and we're getting an insight from the other side. We always hear that fighter's perspective or the trainer's perspective. Hearing the promoter's perspective is different, right? I mean,
the saddest part is, and one day when I'm not involved with this, I can tell some of the stories. Mm-hmm. The fighters have no idea what's going on in their careers half the time. Most of the time. They think they know what's going on, but the fighters have no idea how they're being dealt dirty by double-talking managers who, well, I'll give you this guy, but you got to use this guy that I really want to do this with this guy, and I'm going to throw this guy under the butt. Like, the fighters don't know. They don't know. The guys who are just looking for fights, they don't realize that there are sometimes middlemen who are taking swaths of money off the table before they even get a phone call. Yeah. There's definitely a different point of it, because they try to keep everybody dumb in boxing and in some of these sports, especially the fighters. And look, the fighters, there's definitely a different perspective. But like I said, the one thing I can just say about me and the fighters is I have signed no fighters. A bunch of people have asked me. I have at least 20 fighters who are kind of mad at me that I won't sign them. I have a handshake agreement with everybody, which is, let's work with me until, Eddie Hearn or Top Rank comes. And if I can help, if I can. If I can't help, but great. But I didn't want to be the guy, trying to take 10 points, 20 points off a fighter, because do you know how you got to collect that money? through threats and lawyers, and life is too short. Life is too short, man, to do that.
But you're doing it the right way. You're doing it the gentleman's way. We don't see that a lot of.
Yeah, well, that's why this might be my last show. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if there's room for a guy like me in this.
There is. The boxing world truly needs Larry Goldberg right now more than the boxing world will ever admit it. Larry, thank you so much for coming on.
Can that be the title of this podcast, please? Oh my God!
Absolutely.
Bobby, can I hire you to do my PR?
Hey, I'm here. Let's do it. Anytime.
Anytime, great.
Sir. Absolutely. All right, so we got the big card coming up this week in Atlantic City, New Jersey, this Friday, November the 7th. Justin Figueroa against Jose Permedo for the North American Boxing Federation title. Otto Wallin's also on this card. Man, you got Bruce Seldon Jr. living up to the legacy of his father. Maybe we'll find out, I guess, on Friday night as well. A lot of prospects. The Lugo twins are here as well.
They're brothers.
They're brothers. Sorry, Lugo brothers. My apologies. But you know what? That's just the excitement. I'm looking forward to this card. I'm looking forward to Friday night. Man, we cannot wait. You can catch it on DAZN internationally, everywhere. And if you're in the New York area, you can also catch it on the Mets network. It's called.
Well, it'll air on tape delay on SNY. I'm not exact. The hardest part of airing on SNY is taking our live feed and editing it to their specs. So we've had some problems doing this, as like I said, I don't have the big budget, so we do have some limits. But the fights will air on SNY in the next couple of weeks on tape delay basis.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Looking forward to all of that, but mostly looking forward to getting you back onto the show. Maybe we can do this after this card, talk about the card, how it went, and all that kind of stuff. If you're up to it, we'd be absolutely honored to have you on again. And again, thank you so much for taking out the time. It is fight week, and it's a shorter fight week because everyone goes, I guess weigh-ins are Thursday, press conferences
weigh-ins are Thursday, fights are on Friday, and I'll be sleeping on Saturday and Sunday. I've got the PAL belt. This is it. 100% of this is what no other promoter does. And I will say this, I will challenge other promoters. 100. I'm donating the venue in the ring. The sanction for USA Boxing. If this is the Atlantic City PAL, they do the boxing. They are matching the fights. It's will be 15 fights. They were given about 1,000 tickets that are printed at about $40 each. They sell them. They collect 100% of the money. I donate the room, and they put on the fights, and it becomes a community event for boxing. That's in addition to the prize fighting. Like, again, I mean, this is for kids. This is for local inner city kids fighting, and it really changes lives when you see them. When they walk around, they get a belt, but they the kid living in the inner city is now fighting at the Tropicana. He's there clapping for his brother or his at the Tropicana, and it was really a feel good event that I was proud to be part of last year. I'm proud that we're doing it again this year, and next year we're working on to make it even bigger. So
that's amazing.
I'm excited.
I can't wait to
see cause. It's a great cause.
Yeah, everything you're doing is amazing. We love it. We can't wait to see more of it. We can't wait to be a part of it with you, Larry, at some point if we can. But that all being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. I'm Bobby Sampson. He's Mr. Chance Michaels. Right below us, promoter extraordinaire, Larry Goldberg. Great show coming up this Friday. Can't miss it. It's on DAZN. There are no excuses. So guys, gals, tune in, check out the show. Samp Chance and Larry are out.